Hello goblins, it's Chris, Eldritch Pipes. We're here for episode 5 and 6 of The Whisper in Darkness, which means that by the time we're finished, we'll be over the halfway mark. Amazing. I'm going to be working on a straight pipe on the lathe. I've just got the stumble ready to drill and shape there. I'm going to be smoking some spark plug, GLP spark plug in the acorn. So we're probably going to be spending both episodes at the lathe, I think. I would imagine we would. So we best get crack-a-lacking. Episode, right. Here we go then. The Whisper in Darkness. Episode 5.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Monday the 24th of June. I know who they are. I know who's doing this, who's responsible for it. Finally, I understand what this is all about. They want me to keep quiet. They think I'm sympathetic to the cause, and they think that I'm scared of them. But I'm not. I'm not going to keep quiet. I'm going to blow the whole thing wide open. They've been lying to everyone for long enough, skulking around in the shadows. But what they're trying to do, I can't allow it. Somehow I've got to stop them. If anyone is listening to this, then I've failed. But it's not over. I've written down everything I know and I've sent it to someone I trust. That person will know what to do with it. One way or another, this is going to end.
That is the last recording Henry Akeley made. To the best of our knowledge, he disappeared sometime that week. At this point in the story, it's probably worth recapping what we know. Henry Akeley disappeared from his home on the edge of Rendlesham Forest in Suffolk somewhere around the end of June 2019. Prior to that, he had been trying to get in touch with Eleanor Peck, and he left her a voicemail that seemed very out of character 2 months after his disappearance. Henry claimed that something was coming to his house at night and trying to get in. That same something, or things, allegedly killed several of Henry's dogs. Henry had a shortwave radio set up in his home, and he used it to tune in to an infrequent, pre-recorded broadcast that features what sounds like the voice of a child, reading out letters in an ancient language called Enochian. The letters spell the word Babylon, and we've gathered that this refers to some kind of occult ritual, a summoning known as the Babylon working, which was devised by Dr. John Dee in the 1500s and replicated by Aleister Crowley and by the rocket engineer Jack Parsons. Henry was a member of an occult group with Amelia Fenner, who we met briefly last season. He also may have had ties to Barbara Sayers, and therefore to the Ipkuaya cult that Sayers belongs to. Over Christmas in 1980, Henry Akeley and his group conducted a ritual on the edge of Rendlesham Forest. This may have been their own version of the Babylon working. At the same time as this ritual was taking place, several members of the US Air Force based at nearby RAF Woodbridge observed what they claimed to be UFOs in the sky. Now, we don't know if those two things are in any way connected, and we like to maintain a healthy level of skepticism on both matters of the occult and extraterrestrial life forms. But something is happening here. Henry Akeley has disappeared. And the more we look into his disappearance, the more murky it all seems to get. We've been given a phrase, pleasant green, that seems to suggest that all of this, or at least some of it, is connected to the government in some way. We're treading carefully. And we've realised that the only person who might hold all the answers is the man we're looking for. I'm Matthew Hayward, and this is the Whisperer in Darkness.
Matt, hi. I'm emailing this file to you because it's weird. When you hear it, you'll get why I'm sending it now rather than waiting until I see you. I don't know what's going to happen between now and then, and I don't want to be the only person in possession of this audio. Okay, context. So it's 9:17 a.m. I'm in my hotel room in Orford. My alarm woke me up at 8 o'clock, and, I have no memory of last night. The last thing I remember was saying goodbye to Albert Wilmarth at the vicarage over near Rendlesham, and then I got in the car and I started driving. And the next thing I know, my alarm is waking me up this morning. Which, given that I'm not a drug user or a blackout drunk, is unusual. What's weirder is that my wristwatch is running about 12 minutes slow, which means it must have stopped at some point for 12 minutes and then somehow started up again. So I'm a little discombobulated, but I'm saving the best to last. In an effort to figure out what I might have been doing last night, I checked the log on my audio recorder, and lo and behold, there's an audio file that's time-stamped 7:03 p.m. last night and lasts almost exactly 12 minutes. I have no memory of making this recording or of the content of it. I'm fine. No strange bruises so I don't think I've been experimented on by aliens. Anyway, here's the file. See what you make of it. I'm on some wasteland. There are big concrete buildings all around, all empty, derelict. I can hear the sea, and I think it's just up ahead of me. Is this? I think this must be Orford Ness. These must be the old weapons testing buildings and labs. It's late in the day. The sun is going down. I haven't seen any people, but now, as I clear the corner of one of these buildings, I can see a woman sitting on a wall, looking out to sea.
It's all a bit bleak, isn't it?
She's in her early 30s, with long dark hair, and she's wearing black and dark gray. A lot of layers that seem to all flow together. She's pale, and she's wearing small, round sunglasses.
If you're going to describe me in voiceover, please don't mention this spot on my chin. The bloody thing appeared this morning and is doing its very best to ruin my day.
Describe you.
Well, that's what you do, isn't it? To give your listeners a clearer picture of things.
Do we know each other?
We do now. I'm Parker.
Is that a first name or a last name?
Just Parker. And you're Kennedy Fisher. But you knew that. And you know the history of this place, don't you?
I'm sorry, who are you?
It's all gone now, of course. Turned over to nature. And the owls.
Owls?
You're not seeing them. Look up there.
Oh. I'm turning to look at the buildings, and all the windows have been smashed long ago, and now it seems like every one of those spaces is occupied by a large owl, staring down at me.
Is that a habit that annoys people?
What?
Narrating everything. Do people find that irritating in normal life?
I don't...
They freak me out a bit. The owls. They're considered quite powerful in occult circles. A symbol of pure evil. But then some people claim they're a sign of good fortune, so... Well, I suppose that's occult circles for you. But I don't need to tell you any of this. You're becoming quite an expert.
In the occult?
Well, occult adjacent.
I'm sorry, can we go back to the beginning?
Oh, there's no time, I'm afraid.
Who do you work for?
I quite like it out here. It's pleasant. Green.
Who are you?
We need to progress from this line of questioning.
Okay, what do you want?
Okay, well, that's marginally better, I suppose. I want to help you.
So tell me what Pleasant Green is.
It's a place. It was. Is? Was.
Where?
Don't know, strange though that may seem. Pleasant Green was a quaint English village. A bit like this place. Orford, I mean, not Orford Ness. And it vanished.
What?
I know, yes. Ceased to be.
I don't understand.
No one does, really. The best we can tell, there was some kind of radio broadcast. A number station. You know what that is, right?
I do?
Well, We think it was broadcasting from this place called Pleasant Green, and we believe we sent someone to investigate. But now there's no such village.
What do you mean you believe you sent someone?
Well, there's a collective memory of it. Kind of a vague recollection amongst the people in the department. But there's no records of such a thing happening, and there's no record of the village having existed at any point in history.
But people remember it.
Some people, yeah. Enough to make you think it must have been a thing. And not too long ago, maybe 4 or 5 years. Some of the people weren't working with us before then.
And who is us?
The fact that it's now an echelon trigger phrase seems telling, though, doesn't it?
What have you done with Henry Akeley?
Nothing. Don't know where he is. We're all rather hoping you'll find him.
And who is we?
You've noticed I'm not answering that question?
I'm not going to stop asking it.
The Department of Works. Can we move away from the owls? Do you mind?
Why, are they listening in?
Well, I wouldn't put it past them. We are the good guys. I think.
That's a flaky answer.
It's all complicated. Insofar as my lot are not attempting to militarize an ancient occult ritual, I believe we are on the right side of this one.
The Department of Works.
Oh, it's just the department, really. You've met people from the other side. The man you knew as George Shepley and subsequently Dr. Allen. Barbara Sayers, seemed like a bitch, by the way. And Mr. Hayward crossed paths with Godfrey Tillinghast.
Tillinghast and Dr. Allen are dead.
Interesting.
You didn't know?
Oh, well, Tillinghast is dead, yeah. But Dr. Allen is very much alive.
He can't be.
And we're going to come back to that because it's the weirdest part. But I need to keep my thread here. So, you've met some of the opposition, and you understand that those people, even Godfrey Tillinghast, are essentially pawns.
Shepley, Allen, said they were mere cogs in the machine.
Mere? Well, that dick is one skew's eye away from a methinks, isn't he? Yeah, but that's right. What's happening now is a step up from what they were doing.
But still related to Mesopotamia and Ipkuaya.
Kind of. Tangentially. Al-Hazred links them, and the Necronomicon.
And is it right that that came in through Dunwich?
Way back when, yeah. And the people who took receipt of it there really screwed things up. You know those people who get hold of a new thing and start playing with it before they've read the instructions? Well, that's what happened back then, and bye-bye, Dunwich.
Seriously?
Yep.
So you're actually likening the Necronomicon to, some instructions you get with flat-pack furniture from IKEA?
What do you know about IKEA?
What?
No, nothing. No. Yes. A little knowledge is a dangerous thing. This is why no one sensible was keen on translating the Bible into English.
Are you sure that no one sensible thought that was...
You open it up to the masses and people start misinterpreting the thing like mad. Don't tell me you haven't noticed. Anyway, yes, the Necronomicon came in through Dunwich. Have you read it?
I have not.
Well, don't waste your time. It's incredibly dull. Al-Hazred was many things, but he was no Lee child.
Okay, so the bad guys are using the Necronomicon.
Yes, good. Get me back on track. So, bad guys. Babylon's summoning on a scale never before attempted.
To what end?
That's complicated, but it's nothing good.
And you're the good guys?
In this instance, yes. We've been around as an organisation as long as they have. We both got kind of absorbed into the establishment about 500 odd years ago. And it's mostly checks and balances. They lean one way, we lean the other, and the whole ship stays on an even keel. Now, though, not so much. This is a war. It's fought in the shadows. Our people, their people. It's a full cross-section of society, but at the top of their organisation are some very powerful people.
Like who?
Can't say.
Why not?
Because we work in the shadows.
And yet you know I'm recording this.
Yeah, but it's not like you have a big audience. Joking. No, the decision has been made to use your show to let the other side know that we are onto them.
Uh-huh. Bullshit.
What is?
Everything. Everything you're telling me is a bunch of Looney Tunes paranoid delusional bullshit.
Well, it's okay to think that now, because you're going to find proof.
Oh, really? Of what? That Dunwich was destroyed by amateur wizards? Or that there's a secret conspiracy at the heart of the British government to summon Martians or the Whore of Babylon or whatever this is supposed to be?
It's not Martians. That would be ridiculous.
What was the point of this meeting? What were you hoping to achieve here?
To let you know that you're not alone. We're helping you.
Well, that's a load off.
What can I say to convince you?
Apparently nothing.
I told you Dr. Allen is still alive.
If that's even true, it's hardly earth-shattering. It's not like I watched him die. I thought he was dead. Turns out he wasn't. Shit happens.
Yeah, but you don't remember hanging out with him in Iraq, do you?
Excuse me? I didn't...
When you were supposedly in hospital.
I was in hospital.
Which one?
I don't...
Who was your doctor? What medication did they put you on? You were in a coma? Really? And then you woke up and they let you out, and then where did you go?
I went to Mosul.
Uh-huh. What happened there?
I...
Don't remember? Doesn't that seem weird to you? You can relate this time as a vague thing, but there's no detail, is there? How was the hospital food? Describe one of the nurses. Any one of them.
No, this isn't...
You weren't there. You were with Dr. Allen and Barbara Sayers and Ezra Whedon. Allen's face was covered in bandages.
Bandaged man.
Don't try to force it. It may or may not come back in time. We don't know what you were doing. We lost track of you. But whatever it was, they wiped your memory.
What? How can they wipe...
How can people who've been resurrecting the same Mesopotamian magician into different bodies for nearly 20 centuries monkey around with your brain?
Okay. I think I'm...
Yeah, you should sit down. Just breathe. It's a lot of information. It'll pass. We're nearly done.
How did they mess with my brain?
Well, if you imagine your brain is a computer, it's not, but the analogy works well enough. It runs on software, and they hacked it with language.
With language?
Enochian, the tongue of the angels. It's like programming language for the brain. Fortunately for you, we've mostly erased the code that was there. You are not under their control anymore.
Wait, I was under their...
Yeah, it's okay. It's not like they were going to get you to kill anyone. They just monkeyed around with your short-term memory. And some temporal stuff that has a few freaky localized effects, which you don't need to worry about. We left the trigger in place so that I could get you here, but I'm going to remove it now.
Wait, what are you talking about, get me here?
How did you get here? You were with Albert Wilmarth. He's a nice man, isn't he?
I said goodbye to him and I got in the car.
That's right.
And I drove past Walter Brown.
Ah, yes. He's an empty vessel.
What do you mean?
Complete personality change. Someone's taken vacant possession. We're not intervening until we know who or why, but it's not looking good.
He seemed completely normal.
Charming, I'm told.
Actually, yes.
Walter Brown was never charming. He has the reading age of a pre-adolescent, and his first wife is buried in the back garden. Killed her with a hammer.
Well, how is he
The police don't know. We only found out recently, and it's pointless arresting him if the person in that body isn't him anymore.
So who is it?
Who or what? Not sure. Like I say, it's probably nothing good. Anyway, we went past Walter's house, then Henry Akeley's.
And I got onto the Orford Road, and I saw you.
Yes. Look at me a moment.
Why?
There. You can go back to sleep now.
That's it. I have no image of this Parker woman in my head. No visual memory of her or of the place. But that's my voice on the recording, and I've looked at the files. They don't seem to have been messed with. It's just a raw recording on the disc, which means it must have happened. I haven't really processed it yet. But it seems the best course of action would be to have a massive fry-up and a few gallons of strong coffee and see if that shakes anything loose.
In the basement of the London Library is the Times Room. In a temperature-controlled room, they keep about 200 years' worth of issues of the newspaper, and a whole lot more on microfiche. At the point that Kennedy was sending that audio file to me, I was somewhere beneath St James's Square, trying to find a small piece in a newspaper from 1869. And the sequence of events that led me to be there had started at 11 o'clock the previous evening.
Matthew Hayward, hello.
30 minutes, Westminster Bridge, north side.
How will I know which... Hello? Hello?
Good evening.
I'm recording this.
I rather thought you might.
And you're not hiding in the shadows anymore, Miss...
You don't need to know my name, and you'll refrain from describing me. At the end of this conversation, you'll hand me the memory card from your recorder. My colleague in the car over there will make a copy for you with my voice disguised and then destroy the original.
I'm sorry, that's not how we work.
Those are the conditions for this conversation. They're non-negotiable.
Fine.
We're going to walk across the bridge. When we get to the other side, this meeting is over. What's happening is going to happen soon.
What's happening?
There's a link that we've only just become aware of. There's an account in the Times, 8th of October, 1869.
An account of what?
You'll know it when you see it.
You know, if you want to help, you could be less cryptic.
I don't have time to do your job for you, Mr. Hayward. And I don't think I'd enjoy the pay cut.
Right.
You're on the right track.
Well, it doesn't feel like it. I don't even know who you represent.
It's not germane to the story, Akeley. But what you need to understand is that what you're looking at now and what you were looking into a year ago with the Ward case, they're interlinked.
Yes, we know that.
In more ways than you currently realise. Look at that 1869 issue of the Times and also look into something called the Blake House incident.
Is that the family that disappeared?
Yeah. At the risk of sounding like a cliche, everything's connected.
This is also urgent. Why aren't you, or the people you represent, taking action? Why are you just handing out riddles to someone making a podcast?
Make no mistake, Mr. Hayward, we are doing something about this. But what we're doing can't be made public. What you uncover can, and it should.
Well, aren't you afraid that our broadcasting these conversations is going to spoil the surprise for whoever's behind this?
No, because I don't think you're going to be ready to broadcast this series within the next 48 hours.
It's happening in the next 2 days.
TikTok, Mr. Hayward.
Well, what is it?
Your memory card, please.
Well, I need to know.
Cross the bridge. This meeting is over. Give me the memory card.
Okay. Oh my God. Okay, so this is the Times from Friday the 8th of October, 1869. The headline reads, "Accident at Niagara." Here's the text. A most melancholy accident occurred on the Canada shore of the Niagara River in the vicinity of the falls at about noon on the 24th Ult. Ult means of the previous month, so September. A party consisting of one gentleman and 4 ladies, all belonging to Providence, Rhode Island, were on their way home from Buffalo and crossed over on the Canada side. While their carriage was passing the curve opposite the precipice in front of the Clifton house, the horses became unmanageable, and, as it was evident they would go over the bank, the driver and Mr. Tillinghast, the Providence gentleman, jumped off the seat and escaped with slight injury. The horses and carriage, together with the 4 ladies, went down the bank. However, a distance of some 59 feet. Mrs. Mahala Smith, one of the party, was horribly mangled and instantly killed, and Miss Mary Ann Ballon was so dangerously injured that she cannot possibly recover. Mrs. Tillinghast and a Mrs. Fisher were badly bruised, but their wounds are not dangerous. Okay. So, the mystery woman said this was all connected in ways we didn't realise. There's some connection between Tillinghast and... Was this Fisher somehow related to Kennedy? And Providence, Rhode Island is where Charles Dexter Ward lived. But how does any of that join up to Henry Akeley? Or what's happening now? I parked that and I went to a different part of the library to look up the Blake House incident.
Suffolk Police are tonight appealing for the public's help following the disappearance of architect Jonathan Blake, along with his wife Imogen and their 11-year-old son Matthew. The Blake family disappeared from their home in Capel St Andrew near Orford on Wednesday night. Police say that there were no signs of foul play, and yet neither friends, family nor neighbours have any knowledge of where they went. Suffolk Police are asking anyone who might have information regarding the family's whereabouts to get in touch.
I remembered this case vaguely. The Blake family disappeared in 2010. In 2016, some kids playing on the site of the Blake house, which had been left to ruin, stumbled upon an old basement that had been part of a house that had previously occupied the site. In that basement, they found 5 bodies. The Blakes, plus 2 others. Exactly what had happened to the Blakes, and who the other 2 bodies belonged to, has never been explained. Apart from the geographical proximity of the Blake house to the Akeley house and to Rendlesham Forest, I was struggling to see how this had anything to do with our investigation. But I dug a little deeper, and I found myself looking at the house that stood on the site before Jonathan Blake built his family home there. That house, to which the basement the bodies were found in had presumably belonged, had burned down in 1935. But according to a report I found in one of the local papers at the time, the members of the family that had lived in that house had all been murdered, stabbed to death, prior to the house being set on fire. The perpetrator of this awful crime turned out to be the daughter of the family, just 11 years old at the time. Her name was Mary. The family name was Marston. And I knew that rang a bell, but it took me most of the walk back from the library to the studio to remember why.
I think the people in this picture might know something.
Oh, my glasses, 1 second. Right, well, this is Henry, obviously, and Amelia Fenner. And this chap here is Thomas Marston.
Do you know where I can find him?
Yes, he's about 20 yards that way. He's buried here. He died about 5 years ago.
How did he die?
He took his own life, I'm afraid. He hanged himself. I didn't realise he'd been in this group with Henry.
I didn't think for a second that this was a coincidence, but I couldn't work out why it was significant. The mystery woman had pointed me to that Time story from 1869 and to the Blake House incident, presumably intending me to dig up Marston as the name of one of the members of Henry Akeley's coven. If she was trying to prove her point that everything is connected, then she was doing a good job. But I couldn't see why it was relevant. And then I started looking into Thomas Marston himself. And only then did I realise just how deep this whole thing went.
I'm back at the Akeley house. In daylight this time. I really don't need any more freaky things happening to me today. Hello? Anyone here? I'm sure we've missed something. Henry Akeley is the key to all of this. He's where it started, and we've gone all around the houses, but I'm sure there must be something here that can lead us to him.
Do you want me to look in the kitchen?
Oh, Albert Wilmarth is with me. Daylight or not, I'm not about to come back here on my own. Yeah, take a look around.
And what am I looking for?
Hopefully you'll know when you see it. It could be a phone number scrawled somewhere, or...
I get it.
Okay.
I've forgotten how much this place smells of dog. There's nothing there.
That was quick.
Detective work may not be something for which I have an aptitude.
Let's try upstairs. If there's anything, it's likely to be in here.
It's like the inside of old Henry's head in here.
Exactly. And you knew the inside of his head better than anyone.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
So don't think, just look. What jumps out at you? Albert?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Nothing.
Nothing seems weird.
Well, it's all weird, isn't it? I mean, but nothing's jumping out at me.
No, there's gotta be something. He went somewhere. He said he was going to stop whatever it is from happening, and then he went to go do that, and he never came back. No way does this guy not leave a paper trail.
Well, maybe it is here, but... Well, I mean, you can't even read his writing most of the time. And he's using this weird shorthand, almost like a code. How do you fit all this together?
You don't. Or at least I can't. I'm not up to this.
Well, I think you're being a bit harsh.
I'm being realistic. I'm not a detective, I'm a researcher for a podcast series. I don't have these skills. The cops, if they would engage with this, would have a whole team of people on this room for as long as it takes. This is just... me. Let's go.
Well, I'm happy to help you out.
Let's just go, Albert. I need some sleep. And then I need to see about getting a job I can actually handle.
This doorbell. Well, Henry has an app on his phone. It would alert him when someone came to the door, a proximity detector thing.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but even if those alerts are switched off, if someone rings the doorbell... Have you tried ringing the doorbell? Wherever his phone is...
His phone is with whoever I disturbed here the other night. I rang the bell and I heard the phone go off inside.
Yeah, but if there wasn't someone here...
I told you the light was on and...
Oh, okay, then what if they didn't have his phone? What if the phone just happens to be somewhere in the house?
Okay.
Shall I press the button?
Let me go back inside and listen. Okay, press the button.
Shall I press it again?
Isn't that the definition of insanity?
In that vein.
It was worth a try. Hello? Mr. Akeley?
Stop coming to my house.
I'd like to talk to you, Mr. Akeley.
He's perfectly all right. Perfectly all right. Please leave me alone.
We're worried about you.
You mustn't look for me.
Mr. Akeley? Hello?
No. There's no reason to be...
Henry?
All right. Give me one moment. I'm going to press pause while I take a short break. But for you, we'll be back in just a second. All right, I'm back. You probably haven't moved. Episode 6. So this is a bit like the mid-season episode in Charles Dexter Ward, where they talk to Eleanor Peck, the doctor in witchcraft and folklore. She does a big spiel. It gives us a load of weird lore, weird history, which is one of my favourite bits. So this is a great episode. I'm still here. At some point I'll probably be turning this around to drill the chamber. I'm probably going to get in the way of the camera again a fair bit. Apologies, but that's the way it is. But anyway, here we go. Episode 6, Whispering Darkness.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
My research into Thomas Marston yielded some interesting results. Marston was a member of Amelia Fenner's coven in Suffolk, along with Henry Akeley, Tanya Ratcliffe and Walter Brown. At first glance, Marston seemed like a minor figure. He committed suicide in 2015 at the age of 53, which makes him 18 years old when he participated in the ritual that the coven supposedly took part in over Christmas in 1980. Mary Marston, the little girl who murdered her family in 1935 on the site of what subsequently became the location of the Blake House incident, was Thomas Marston's first cousin once removed. If you climb higher up that family tree, you find yourself arriving in the town of Fressingfield in Suffolk, which is about 20 miles away from Rendlesham Forest. In 1645, one of Thomas Marston's ancestors, a woman called Faith Mills, was accused of witchcraft during Witchfinder General Matthew Hopkins' reign of terror. Mills, probably as a result of being tortured, confessed to having 3 familiars and was hanged. Given how unlikely it was that any of Matthew Hopkins' victims were actually practicing witches, there's a good chance that Faith Mills was innocent. Nonetheless, the accusation cast a long shadow over the Marston family. It's also interesting for our purposes to note that a few years later, Fressingfield held a congregational meeting to figure out how to deal with their supposed witch problem, and one of the visitors to that meeting was a John Tillinghast. Tillinghast was known as a fifth monarchist, which is to say that he was a member of an extreme Puritan sect that emerged in England after the Civil War. John's nephew was the fantastically named Pardon Tillinghast, who left England in 1645 and became one of the first settlers of Providence, Rhode Island. It's likely, therefore, that the Tillinghast who had the carriage accident in Niagara in 1869 was descended from him. All of this is scenery, really, unless you really believe that whatever strange things are going on today can actually be traced all the way back into the depths of the past. It's Thomas Marston's more recent history that is of interest. Following the ritual in Rendlesham Forest in 1980, Thomas appears to have suffered something of a psychological breakdown. His parents, fearing for his well-being, eventually shipped him off to America. Thomas, for whatever reason, although one suspects Amelia Fenner's involvement somehow, ended up in Providence, Rhode Island. Perhaps he was hooking up with Amelia Fenner's friends from her days in Joseph Curwen's groups, or perhaps he was just hoping to start a new life. Either way, Thomas's mind was not yet healed from whatever damage it had sustained following the ritual in Rendlesham, and he sought psychiatric help in Providence. In case you're not yet becoming suspicious of these coincidences, Thomas Marston's doctor was...
Hello, Dr. Willett.
I'm Matthew Hayward, and this is The Whisperer in Darkness.
Thomas Marston, he saw things, you know.
And what did he see?
He saw the truth. And you know what they say about the truth, don't you?
That it sets you free.
That it sends you crazy. You're here with a man before.
Godfrey Tillinghast.
He's not a good man.
He's dead. Thomas Marston is dead too.
Wow.
He hung himself.
Yes.
Why did he do that?
Oh, now you expect a simple answer. One simple thing and bing, mystery solved. People do things.
Thomas Marston was involved with some people who were connected to the case of Charles Dexter Ward.
I once had a patient called Thomas Marston. He was cuckoo.
Why was he cuckoo?
You're going round in circles to humour me.
I want to know what Thomas Marston saw in the forest in 1980. That was the source of his problems,
I
wasn't
was
it?
once in a room, and I looked into a pit, an underground room, and there was a hole in the ground.
Yes, Charles Ward's laboratory with Dr. Allen.
Dr. Allen is not dead.
We've been over this, Dr. Willett.
In the pit, I saw demons or angels, but I think they're the same. There's a man here I have to talk to. He claims to be a psychiatrist, but I have never witnessed his credentials. He tells me that I am not a good conversationalist because he believes that one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. But I say that is a very simplistic view. I say reality is a puzzle made up of fragments, and that in order to understand the puzzle, we must move across those fragments randomly. I have seen the face of God, And it is terrible.
Dr. Willard.
Thomas Marston saw God in the forest.
He saw God.
And now you picture a man with a beard and a halo, and his robes are flowing, and that is not God. I do not know who the man with the beard is.
So what did Thomas Marston see?
He saw the Maigo.
The what?
The abominable ones. The wild hunt. The heralds of the herald.
I don't understand.
And the herald is a clever one. He's here, he's there, he's not here, he's not there, shifting. You understand? A new face, a new name. Who do you want him to be today? What does he need to be for you to invite him in?
Who are we talking about?
And he shall put on the semblance of man, the waxen mask and the robes that hide, and come down from the world of seven suns to mock. You may call him Herd, or Lamb, or Babylon.
Babylon.
But these are not his names. These are the masks he wears, so no one recognizes the crawling chaos. They invite him in because they want money or power. But what is money to God? What is power to God? His real name,
Yes.
is Nyarlathotep. And he is the end of all things. I tried pinging this guy's phone, but it's not switched on. So then I looked at the service provider's records. That phone is not connected to the network for, 3 months?
This is Slide again, the cybersecurity expert.
No way can I find this guy. Sorry, Kay. There is something else you could try, though.
I'm listening.
The audio you got off that doorbell speaker? I know someone who might be able to clean up the recording and pull out the background.
That seems like the longest of shots.
Yep. You want to give it a try?
A chance to meet another raging nerd? How could I pass that up? And that's how come I'm in Cambridge. The university libraries here collect a lot of archive audio from around the world, and much of it arrives in pretty bad shape. So they employ a woman called Charlotte Davenport to clean it all up and restore it.
Call me Charlie.
Charlie is not the nerd I was expecting. She looks more like an artist or a writer, or... Actually, she looks like a librarian, but not one of the evil ones. I hand over the memory card that holds the recording of Henry Akeley from his doorbell. Charlie listens to it a couple of times, then...
There's some stuff there. You can see here on the waveform.
She points to her computer screen and shows me the kind of thing that Matt gets excited about. Graphical depictions of sound waves. This is the reason I don't get involved with post-production.
This is the man's voice, and these bits here are audio registering in the background of wherever he is.
And there's a way to pull that out?
There is. I just need to grab a noise profile. And then see how it renders out. I listened to a little bit of your show just, when I knew you were coming up.
Oh, yeah?
Is it real?
I'm afraid so.
Oh, it's creepy.
It can be.
Hey, if you're into people disappearing, the woman who worked here before me just up and vanished.
Really?
Rachel Weir. Left one night, never came back.
Well...
I met her once at a conference. She seemed pretty normal.
People disappear for all kinds of reasons.
Oh, here we go.
That's a recording of a recording, so it's hard to make out. Charlie was able to clean it up a little more, so I'm going to play that to you directly now, so you can hear the best version of it, and then you'll know what we're talking about.
Stop coming to my house.
What is that?
Listen again.
Is it a train?
I think it is. I think that because here it gets closer.
Okay, yes, I hear that.
You hear anything else about it?
Such as?
Okay, I'm kind of cheating because I can see it when I expand the waveform. You see these bright patches here?
Mm.
Those are the sound the train makes when it's hitting the joins in the rails.
Okay.
And see what happens here?
They're getting further apart.
Which means...
That I'm in a high school physics lesson? The train is slowing down.
It could be slowing down because it's coming into a station. A station near...
a church.
So, you're looking for somewhere that's near a church and a railway station, and somewhere that has a train arriving pretty much dead on 3 p.m. on the day in question.
Okay, I guess that narrows it down quite a bit. Do you know what that distortion is?
I can try to take it apart, but it might take a while.
Okay. And that kid giggling at the end?
Yeah?
It's a long shot. Can I play you something else? And I play Charlie the recording of the number station we found, the Babylon recording. And Charlie loads the Babylon broadcast onto her computer and lines it up next to the other recording. Then I watch her monkey around with settings and filters until...
Same kid.
Are you sure?
I'm 90%. And I'll tell you what else, I think that burst of static is the same too. Listen, if I slow down the static on the doorbell recording...
Wow.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
I was hoping you were going to tell me that.
I'd imagine something more high-tech.
Eleanor Peck was in London to deliver a lecture on the history of witchcraft to a group of UCL students. I managed to get her to come into the studio for an hour afterwards.
Welcome to the glamour of podcasting.
Anyway.
Yes.
Nyarlathotep.
You've heard of this?
Of course. It dovetails with that kooky rubbish we were talking about last year. The Mesopotamia stuff. How does this get you closer to finding Henry Akeley? I did warn Kennedy about getting sidetracked into whatever nonsense Henry believed.
Yeah, but if we're going to find him or find out what happened to him, we think understanding what he was into is going to be our best bet.
Okay. Which means I'm going to be doing all the heavy lifting again, am I?
You're the expert.
So how does Nyarlathotep tie in with Henry?
Dr. Willett seemed to think that Nyarlathotep was another name for Babylon.
This is the same Dr. Willett who's locked up in Broadmoor for being completely balmy?
Yeah, but he's also the same Dr. Willett who treated Thomas Marston, another member of Amelia Fenner's group, when he had some kind of nervous breakdown following the ritual they performed in 1980.
So you're trying to tie Henry's disappearance into that Mesopotamia business and Martian?
Oh, well...
I can do that for you as a fun exercise, but please bear in mind this is a web of conspiracy theories, not the real world that sane people live in.
Understood.
And a question first. What do you make of the Rendlesham Forest incident?
Oh, I have no idea. And I've thought about it a lot, but...
Not a lighthouse?
Well, I don't think senior US Air Force personnel mistake a lighthouse beacon for a UFO and follow it around a forest for 2 nights on the trot.
Some kind of experimental gizmo, then?
Out of Orford Ness. Well, it's got to be possible. Because no one really knows what the Ministry of Defence were doing there in 1980, but it seems convenient.
And why does that bother you?
Well, it wouldn't account for whatever ritual Henry Akeley and his friends were performing that night.
So it doesn't fit your narrative?
I'm not sure we have a narrative yet.
I'm just saying, be careful. It's easy to take all these little puzzle pieces and slot them into something that makes a nice picture but isn't necessarily accurate.
Duly noted.
All right. So this is going to go all the way back and start again at the Necronomicon. As you know, Alhazred was a devotee of Ibku-aya. He went to Nineveh around 700 AD to try to find the secrets to Ibku-aya's supposed reincarnation magic. That didn't work out for him. So then he heads out into the desert. Now, the bit that we skimmed over last time was the part where Alhazred claims to have discovered a race of elder beings, some kind of pre-human race living beneath the desert. Lots of cultures have this notion baked into their mythology. Atlantis being the most obvious. The basic idea is that before we were here, someone else was here.
So we're humans 2.0?
No, because people who believe this stuff all think that whoever came before was much more advanced in certain ways than we are.
When we say advanced?
Not like they had the internet, but like they could do more with their minds than we can.
You're talking about magic.
I am talking about magic. So, Alhazred finds these people living under the desert, and they supposedly teach him all about how they do what they do. And crucially, they teach him how to get in touch with them without having to go back to the desert.
And how's that?
Well, through a ritual. You see, these people didn't supposedly just die off, and they weren't literally living in a cave under the desert. What Alhazred found in the desert was some kind of portal through which he travelled to the dimension where these elder beings hang out.
Right.
Skepticism at this stage is good because it is all bollocks. But there are actually a variety of theories as to just how bollocks it is. One, it's bollocks. It's all just bollocks. There was no Alhazred, no Necronomicon. It's all just completely made up. I lean towards this school of thought because even in those instances where a bit of the Necronomicon has supposedly surfaced, it has never been properly authenticated. The second school of thought is the It's All True brigade. They're mostly dangerous lunatics, some of whom you met last time around, and we talked about them, the secret societies, the Nazis, Joseph Curwen's lot, and so on. And then there's the third school of thought.
Go on.
The third school of thought can be described in a nutshell, appropriately enough, as it's all bollocks because Nyarlathotep.
What does that mean?
Okay, so infinite universe, so much we don't know about it, blah, blah, blah. You might subscribe to a creation myth, depending on your chosen religion, but it's all mostly benevolent, and there's a guy up there sitting on a cloud or whatever, and he made us all, and he's watching over the earth, etc., etc.
He's not doing a great job.
I would agree with that. But now imagine instead of the benevolent beardy god, we had an entity called Azathoth. And the universe is actually the product of Azathoth's dreams.
This is a stretch.
Well, not for some people, it turns out. And to be fair, it's not really that different from believing that the world is a computer simulation. If you decide that's the model you're going to use, you'll find plenty of evidence to support it. Anyway, Azathoth is asleep somewhere outside the cosmos, and everything we can see, hear, touch, feel is a product of his dreams. Now, Azathoth would like to experience this world he's created, but he can't, because if he wakes up, it all ceases to exist. So he has placed an avatar into the universe, his herald, whose name is Nyarlathotep.
He's sent us his only son.
Exactly. But Nyarlathotep is not going to be turning water into wine or doing the bit with the loaves and fishes. What he's trying to do is to open a portal into the universe through which Azathoth can travel. And in order to do that, he needs our help.
Why?
Well, the idea goes that we are a product of Azathoth's subconscious. He's imagining us, and that's a one-way thing. But if we attempt to communicate with him, then we could hold this universe in stasis and create a portal through which he could travel.
And what would happen then?
Death, destruction, madness, mostly madness. Supposedly, the mere sight of anything from Azathoth's dimension would send the human mind into absolute spasms of delirium. Our brains wouldn't be able to comprehend what we saw, and we'd go crazy.
Right. So why would anyone want to go along with that?
Actually, pretty much no one does. Even out there on the lunatic fringes of the occult, no one's particularly keen on having Azathoth over. Which is why Nyarlathotep doesn't use his real name.
He uses Babylon.
He uses whatever he needs to use. Babylon, Satan, Lamb, the angel Gabriel. Whatever looks like it'll do the trick. Nyarlathotep is not hiding his light under a bushel. If you've got a modicum of occult learning, you can summon something that will probably turn out to be a version of Nyarlathotep.
Really?
No, obviously not really. But that's the belief system of this third bollocks argument. None of this Ipkuaya, Babylon, Lamb, Martian stuff is real. It's all just a ruse by Nyarlathotep to get someone to open the portal and let Daddy come out to play.
Okay. So the likes of Barbara Sayers, Godfrey Tillinghast, Amelia Fenner...
They're in Group 2.
Right.
Group 1 is all bollocks. Group 2 believe in the elder beings and they're trying to summon them for knowledge or money or world domination or whatever. And opposing them are Group 3, who believe that the whole thing is a ruse by Nyarlathotep to bring about the end of the universe in a mess of screaming insanity. Group 3 therefore make it their business to stop Group 2 from succeeding in any rituals that might inadvertently open up a portal for Azathoth to step through.
I think I have this.
Easy way to remember. Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Right.
The Nazis are Group 2. They want the Ark of the Covenant because they think it will allow them to win the war. Group 3 is Indiana Jones, out to stop the Nazis getting the Ark because opening that thing is way more of a deal than the Nazis realise. Group 1 is us, the audience, munching on popcorn and enjoying the movie in the certain knowledge that it's all bollocks.
So Dr. Willett's in Group 3?
I suspect Willett's too mad to be allowed into any of the groups. That woman Kennedy spoke to, Parker, it sounds like whoever she works for would be in Group 3.
I was going to ask you about that because I know you're a skeptic.
The realist.
But how do you account for the lost time Kennedy experienced?
Could be any number of things. Post-hypnotic suggestion, some kind of drug. Last year when she was with Shepley and Sayers, they did a real number on her. Who knows what they gave her or what lasting effects it could have. Parker is interesting, though. She claimed to work for some kind of secret society within the establishment. There is a historical thread to be followed there. Some of it is factual, some myth or folklore, but it does illuminate these belief systems and it centres on Suffolk. So it's probably useful.
I'm all ears.
I'm all throat and it's parched. Can I get some more water?
Sure.
I'm back in London at Slide's place.
Hey, no geographical identifiers.
Jeez, calm down, Edward Snowden. I'd come back to see Slide with a slightly wild idea that I figured was worth a shot.
There is zero chance of this working.
I'm sure that's right.
And I am a busy man.
Now, I'm pretty sure that's not true.
Hey, you don't understand a thing about how this stuff works.
Well, we're about to find out, aren't we? What I was asking Slide to do was to play the static burst into his computer like it was code.
Oh, it's like I'm loading a ZX Spectrum game off tape in 1982.
That's about the size of it.
Nothing will happen.
This argument had been going back and forth the whole time Slide had been digging out bits of old tech and cabling them up.
Ready to lose a bet?
We did not bet.
Shall we bet?
No.
Whatever. Give me the audio. So, I'm going to execute this, and then nothing is going to happen.
Uh-huh.
Are you ready?
I've been ready for like an hour.
Fine, then. See?
What happened?
Nothing. That is what nothing happening looks like.
Wait. What does it say on the screen?
It's an error message.
No, it isn't. What does it say?
It's not an error message.
No, it is not.
It says, help me.
So let's look at all this again from the point of view of the Nyarlathotep theory. Alhazred goes out into the desert and he somehow goes through this portal and he thinks he's meeting this race of elder beings.
But in fact it's some kind of illusion.
Nyarlathotep and his minions.
He has minions?
Which self-respecting cosmic deity doesn't. So, according to that theory, what the Necronomicon actually is an instruction manual for how to open the portal for Azathoth. So, we skip all the business about Alhazred being ripped apart by an invisible monster. Except to note that, according to the Nyarlathotep theory, this presumably happened because Alhazred realised what these instructions were really for and decided to give ending the world a hard pass. So, the Necronomicon is in the wind, and as you've discovered over the centuries, it somehow makes its way across the Middle East and into Europe, and then someone puts it on a ship which docks in Dunwich. The witch coven, who collected the book at Dunwich, clearly didn't know what they were doing. If we look at the Necronomicon as an instruction manual, we have to allow that it is insanely complicated and that it was written in a language that no one speaks anymore. So those witches were flying blind. According to legend, they attempted a ritual from the book, and Dunwich got wiped off the map. The Necronomicon drops off the radar again then, but it's safe to say it stays in Suffolk because there are a number of breaches there over the following centuries.
Breaches?
That would be the notion that people attempting the rituals laid out in the book are creating breaches in the fabric of reality and letting monsters through. Both sides of the argument, the elder beings believers and the Nyarlathotep people, seem to be under the impression that folkloric creatures are a symptom of these tears in the fabric of reality that are brought about when a ritual momentarily connects our universe with something beyond, either this other dimension of the elder beings or else the dreamlands of Azathoth's imagination. And so we have this idea of the wild man of Orford, a man caught by fishermen, a merman who shares commonalities with the mermaid myths that pervade the area. And in fact, the Himalayan word, migu, which is what they call the Yeti, literally translates as wild men. So actually, we have this idea of a creature emerging from the surrounding landscape. Mer people in coastal Suffolk, the Yeti in the Himalayas, Bigfoot in the American forests.
If the Necronomicon was in Suffolk, how did tears appear in the reality of Tibet and America?
Well, I suppose because it's bollocks.
Right.
I'm explaining the thinking of crazy people. I'm not Morpheus telling you the world is really a video game.
Right, point taken.
Anyway, in Suffolk, we have the wild men and mermaids, and then we have Black Shuck, or Great Shuck.
The big dog.
Yes, the big black dog. The embodiment of Satan, according to some. Sightings all over Suffolk, but quite well concentrated in the Rendlesham area, for those who enjoy coincidences. And then there were the Green Children, who appeared in the village of Woolpit in the 12th century. 2 kids with green skin who spoke an unknown language and claimed to come from another world. So this stuff's happening, and the assumption is that it's Necronomicon side effects. The book itself doesn't surface again until the late 1500s, when John Dee somehow makes contact with one of the Suffolk covens and ends up translating the Necronomicon into English. Dee bought into the whole elder beings thing, and he spread the word about it throughout the English establishment. Supposedly, Queen Elizabeth herself was on board, because Dee had convinced her that with the elder beings on side, she could defeat the French and the Spanish and whoever else she went to war with. Dee apparently performed a ritual from the Necronomicon to move the Spanish Armada off course. And that was seen as proof positive that England had beings from another dimension watching her back. Dee set up a network of covens all over East Anglia. When you look at where those covens were located, you see interconnecting ley lines that form a symbol of power designed to amplify what's now referred to as the Babylon working. The Group 3 people believe it to be the sigil of Nyarlathotep, obviously. When James I came to power, he set himself in opposition to Dee's whole plan. James believed that Elizabeth had been using Alhazred's spells against his mother, Mary, when she was imprisoned in Scotland. So James started actively hunting down these East Anglia covens. He wanted to wipe that Babylon symbol off the map. The likes of Matthew Hopkins and John Stern took that to the next level, rampaging through Essex, Suffolk and Norfolk, accusing people, mostly women, of witchcraft left, right and centre. Of course, we now know that most of those they persecuted were completely innocent. The real covens had, supposedly, gone underground. So, Hopkins and Stern were a massive misfire. They achieved nothing at all beyond an alarming amount of violent misogyny. But there were those within the establishment who believed they understood the real dangers of the covens Dee had set up. These people believed the Nyarlathotep theory, and they were a little more practical. in their attempts to curtail it. According to this kind of shadow history, these people tracked down the real covens and disbanded them. If this secret society had a name at its inception, it's lost to time, and we only see glimpses of it through the English Civil War and into the Restoration and the Enlightenment. Wren and Hawksmoor, Isaac Newton, a lot of the Royal Society thought to have been involved, but again, there's no evidence either way. It's possible Crowley had something to do with them in the early 20th century, but no one's ever really clear whose side he's on. It's likely that the being Crowley contacted, Lamb, was actually Nyarlathotep, but whether Crowley knew that or not, we don't know. If he did, that would explain why he was so against Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard performing the Babylon working in 1945. What we do know about our supposed secret society is that they stepped briefly out of the shadows during the 1930s and into the Second World War. Declassified military documents talk about operations against the Nazi occult gang by something referred to as the Department of Works. The Nazis, as we know, were after contact with the elder beings, and this Department of Works curtailed that. And supposedly, not just because they didn't want the Nazis to get their hands on some supernatural power, but because they thought Hitler and his mates were in danger of accidentally opening up the portal to Azathoth.
So they really were Indiana Jones.
Once again, this is a fairy tale.
Yeah, but as you've been at pains to point out in the past, the people who believe this stuff
Can be dangerous, yes. Anyway, the Department of Works shortened its name to The Department, and allegedly it still exists. If that were true, I would guess that's who your Ms. Parker works for.
And that brings us up to the present day.
Thank God.
So, allowing that none of this is true, but that there are people out there who believe it is.
Where are we now?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Babylon working, whatever anyone actually thinks it does, requires a lot of energy. That's why Dee went to so much effort to set up the East Anglia covens in a specific geometric principle to channel and focus that energy.
On to where?
If you look at the maps, the centre of the sigil is Rendlesham Forest.
So, in 1980...
And here we are again.
I'm talking in theory.
Okay, from the point of view of the credulous, Amelia Fenner, Henry Akeley and the others performed a version of the Babylon working, which, while nowhere near powerful enough to have its intended effect, nonetheless caused a small tear in the fabric of reality and let something through.
We've got two strange objects, half-moon shape, dancing about with coloured lights on them.
If you want to take that to something pretending to be a logical conclusion, whatever came through latched onto Henry for some reason, like baby geese identifying an inanimate object as mother, and that's why they were trying to get into his house.
Okay. And if that breach was somehow seen as a proof of concept...
No, I see where you're going. The radio broadcast.
Henry Akeley said he knew what they were up to, and he said that right before he vanished.
So you think someone is attempting the ritual on a larger scale?
Parker said as much. And everything you've been saying fits.
Of course it fits. It's supposed to fit. That's how conspiracy theories work, Matt. But it's not real. Oh, I see what you're doing.
What am I doing?
You're trying to get me to say something explosive and doom-laden so you can end the episode on a cliffhanger. The fact is, I'm going to sleep like a baby because I know enough about all this stuff to know that it's a nonsense delusion shared by people who don't have a firm grasp on reality and who desperately need to believe that there are somehow cheat codes to life that will make up for all their shortcomings. It's Brexit for wizards.
Okay, but just for a moment, imagine that they're right. That there's a group of shadowy people out there who think they can achieve great power for themselves, for this country.
Brexit.
If they enact this Babylon working on a grand scale in a couple of days' time. But in actual fact...
Not fact.
That they've been tricked by Nyarlathotep into opening up a portal to, what did you call it? Azathoth's dreamlands.
Yeah, yes.
So...
If it's all true... Which it isn't.
But...
it would be the end of the world. Don't you dare end on that.
there you go. It would be the end of the world. So, reasonable stakes then. Hope you enjoyed that. I can't remember what happens next. I completely drilled my Stummel, which is great. So, I've got more stuff to crack on with, but for you, it's now another week to go. What will it be? 6 for 7 and 8. Blimey, we're really ripping through this season. Okay, that's it. I guess I'll be back with a tobacco review next time, something like that. Take it easy, and I'll see you soon. Ta-da.